My name is Andrew Krammer, joined by Vikings experts Ben Goessling and Michael Rand.
Experts.
Wow. Hey, that's what you got to sell yourself here. We're here to give the people hot takes.
Yes.
The weather's hot enough. We got to give the people some hot takes as well about this Minnesota.
Some roster projections.
This Minnesota Vikings team. We're live here at the Minnesota State Fair. For those of you who are here, passing by, you're well familiar with that. Those of our thousands of listeners, hopefully you get some ambient noise here of some cheese curds, some beer, all the rest here. But we're going to talk plenty of Minnesota Vikings stuff from...
We don't promise ambient smells, but State Fair, you can take that or leave it sometimes.
Catching a few.
Catching a few. We'll talk plenty of season predictions, expectations, what we're thinking from this Minnesota Vikings team this year, all the way down to the minutia of the 53-man roster that they have to decide on by 3 p.m. tomorrow. So big deadline coming up for this team. They've already made, I believe, 14 roster moves this morning to trim down a lot of different guys, but no surprises there. So still plenty to debate. But gentlemen, let's start from the top here with the Minnesota Vikings of what we expect from this team in 2024. There was obviously the bad news of J.J. McCarthy, the rookie quarterback, going down early on in training camp in that first preseason game. However, Sam Darnold was always expected to be the starting quarterback, much like Jordan Love was in Green Bay, Jared Goff in Detroit, and Caleb Williams in Chicago. So Ben, starting with you, we're asked every year to put out predictions for this team. I have not yet done mine, so I got to think on the fly what exactly I'm going to come up with. But what are your expectations for this team this year? And if you can, put a record prediction on it.
I'll take a swing.
Yeah.
A lot of this is going to depend on the quarterback, obviously. That's Captain Obvious. But what are they going to get out of that spot? Because I think if they are able to play efficiently enough on offense, this can be a competitive team. I think the defense will be better. I like the corner group better than what they had last year, which isn't a hard bar to clear. I think the group overall in the front seven will be more varied. I think they can get more different looks out of that group as a whole. And I think they'll run the ball better offensively. I think that is going to be a real commitment. We've heard that from Kevin O'Connell before, and Mike is rolling his eyes.
I believe it when I see it.
We've seen some of it in training camp and the preseason. It has looked different. How successful will it be? We'll see. But there does seem to be more of a commitment to downhill runs, heavier personnel. I think we're going to see a lot of those things play out, and I like Aaron Jones a lot better than what they've had in the past as well. So what does that turn into for a record? I think if I were to put a number on it, I don't know that I'd trust Sam Darnold to say more than 7 wins. I think I'd probably go 7-10. The NFC North is a lot more difficult. Shout out Bears fan Lavelli Neal III sitting in the audience. The NFC North, I think, is harder to just stack the wins up than it used to be, where you say, well, Chicago's going to be 2, Detroit's going to be 1 or 2, and then you split with the Packers, and that's 4 or 5 right there. So that plus the uncertainty I have with the quarterback, I'm going 7-10.
Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, that's my number too. I think 7-10. I picked them to go 7-10 2 years ago when they went 13-4. Yeah. So there's that. I take my predictions with a grain of salt, but that feels like kind of the consensus of where they're at. They're probably not a playoff team unless, like Ben said, the thing I liked about them especially is the defense. I think the defense is going to be better this year. I don't have a ton of faith in Sam Darnold, and some of the fun of the season with J.J. McCarthy, maybe taking over at some point. We've kind of lost that. I think their ceiling is pretty low also. Like I don't think they have much more than 9 or 10 wins in like their wildest kind of simulation, and I think they could be, as bad as a 4 or 5 win team. I just feel like this is kind of the year where they're going to take their lumps a little bit. You look at how good the division is. You kind of look at what the data says.
Yeah, and this is going to be a tough schedule for them, especially right out of the gate. You're making your trip to Green Bay in September. They're not going to have a lot of time to figure it out. And if they don't figure it out right away, things could kind of go south quickly. You guys are going to turn me into homers, though. You're gonna make me pick a winning squad here at this point. I can't zig while everybody else is zigging. I have to pick then 9-8.
9-8.
I do think that's about their ceiling.
Okay.
I think this is going to be a team that Brian Flores' group on defense is going to take another step forward. I think this edge rusher group, the pass rushers they've got. Yes, they lost Danielle Hunter. We all know that's bad. But with Dallas Turner coming in, with them signing Grenard and Van Ginkel, 2 guys who are going to play a lot and know very well Brian Flores' defense, especially Van Ginkel, I think this team is going to get after the quarterback a lot better than it did last year. They're not going to have to blitz nearly as much as they did last year. And if I'm looking at the positive side of things of how it could go optimistically, Stephon Gilmore stays healthy, Shaq Griffin stays healthy at corner. They're able to at least get some of those wins in the division, maybe go 3-3 at best in the division. I think they can compete at least for a wild card spot late into the year and be somewhat relevant. Again, I think that's best case scenario.
Yeah.
This is still a roster in transition. If they get one or two injuries at the wrong spots, it could really go south on them. So I think when we look at it logically, like you guys are, it's easy to say this is going to be a losing team. But if they have things go the right way, that running game is going to be huge for them. Because if Sam Darnold's not having to throw 30 passes a game, 35 passes a game the way Kirk did, then he can at least be more efficient, not feel like everything's on his shoulders. I think that's going to be huge. So if Aaron Jones stays healthy, that's also going to be a big one.
It's an if.
It's all these ifs I keep throwing out there. That's the only way I see them being a winning team this year in 2024, because the future's still bright for them beyond this year. And they've always had that outlook with J.J. McCarthy coming in. It was never going to be about 2024. It was always going to be about his development and beyond. So I think they can fight for relevancy, Ben, but I'm not too optimistic about it, as you can tell.
Yeah, I think it is. A lot of this depends on, and Mike brings up the point about the ceiling. The ceiling depends on the quarterback, I think. You have to have a stretch where your quarterback is great for 6-7 weeks at a time, where you can reel off a lot of wins, or you're not ever going to get to that point, beyond 9, maybe 10 as a ceiling. And a lot of that is just, that's going to be the question we come back to over and over and over this year is how much can they get out of Sam Darnold? And I heard some things over the weekend that made me think the J.J. McCarthy development had moved up enough that it didn't seem like anybody was going to have reservations about putting him on the field this year. I think I had thought at the beginning of the year, hey, if he has to sit a whole year, they'd probably be okay with that. I think they still would have been okay with that. But I think he had done enough that they thought we could play him a little sooner if we needed to do it. That obviously is water under the bridge to the grandstand at the State Fair at this point, because he's not going to be there. So this does come down to what can you get out of Sam Darnold. That means what is Sam Darnold when he's pressured, which typically has not been very good. What are you able to do developmentally to get him to that next stage? They've shown they got more out of Kirk Cousins. This is a different thing, I think, in some ways. He's got the talent to do it, but can you get him to play at a level that he has not in the NFL? And if you're going to go anywhere, that almost has to happen.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Sam Darnold, because he is the hopes for the Minnesota Vikings this year and this season. Mike, he's got, I believe, something like 61 touchdowns to 56 interceptions in his 6-year career to this point. He's had very bad stints for the Jets, the Panthers, not good organizations, not good teams. He's coming off of a year in which he was the backup in San Francisco, where he got a year to learn and develop in a very good system, a very good organization. He thinks that's going to set him up for success here this year in Minnesota. What are your hopes, or at least thoughts about him going into this year?
I think to Ben's point and to your point, I feel like it's the question, is what's the Viking ceiling depends largely on what is Sam Darnold's ceiling. And I was actually on the way over here on the shuttle, I was reading, I think it was there's like quarterback tiers.
Yep.
I think it was
Mike
Sandoz, the quarterback tiers. They've got him as like a tier 4 quarterback this year, I think, which is in the lower tier. He's like second from the bottom, I think, in terms of overall quarterbacks, in terms of what people think of him. But there's enough people who think, could he be, on his best days, is he a tier 3, tier 2, even potential quarterback? So, like, how good can he be? Like, if Kirk Cousins, for the entirety of his time here, was, like, firmly established as, like, a guy who was about, like, the 10th to 13th best quarterback in the league, is Sam Darnold capable of getting close to that, or is he more of a guy who is just going to be in the mid-20s as a starter and can't go win you a game? I don't know. I don't know if we know that yet, but his body of work does not suggest that he is capable of being a top half of the league quarterback.
I do think the surrounding parts are going to be so important because, Ben, where has he had a good running game? Where has he had a decent defense? We saw one of Sam Darnold's brightest moments. We were there for it. It was a Vikings win. I believe they pulled that game out.
And they get overtime.
In Carolina, in overtime, Sam Darnold went like 99 yards to force overtime against Mike Zimmer's defense when I think it was 2021. It was like the tail end of Zimmer's time here.
Cousins to Osborne for the winner, I think.
That's right. But Darnold had that shining moment right before, obviously, Osborne won the game for the Vikings. So we've seen what he's capable of doing. It's just that consistency that's evaded him this entire time.
Yeah, I mean, the talent is there. I mean, you're not getting to be the third pick in the draft if you're not talented enough to play the position at a high level and catch scouts' eyes enough to say, hey, this guy is worth a high draft pick. I mean, that you're not faking your way to that spot. So, and we've seen the arm talent in the preseason. We've seen, I think, more mobility than I thought there was, at least in terms of being able to make plays throwing on the run. Probably not a guy that's going to take off and be, Lamar Jackson or something. That's not Sam Darnold, but the ability to extend plays and make people cover Justin Jefferson for 5 or 6 seconds, which is a tough proposition. If you have a quarterback that allows you to do that, I think that helps. So talent-wise, it's there. It's when things are for real, when the pass rushes are harder to decipher, if things break down, if you're trying to make plays on 3rd and 8 with a game on the line, and you're trying to fit a ball into a tight window. I mean, it's those types of things that he's going to have to be able to do consistently because as the gray hair on my temples will attest, this team plays more close games than any other in the NFL.
Yes.
It's like 6 to 8 more than one-score games than any other team in the league over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So if that continues, you have to be able to make plays in close games. And every NFL team plays a lot of close games.
Right.
That's just the way the league is wired. There's not that much of a difference between these teams, which means you're going to have to win games with high leverage plays late. And if he's not capable of that, I think it's tough to see them going to a higher level.
Well, if we want to talk about ceilings and what the ceiling is for this Vikings team, let's talk about the defense. That's the one side that all three of us seem to be somewhat optimistic on without this transition from quarterback. Obviously, moving on from Kirk is huge on offense, but on defense, this is the second year of Brian Flores, second year of him handpicking a little bit of the players he wants, and we see his mark being made where they sign a big edge rusher in free agency, then they go draft another big edge rusher. That's what he needs. They signed Stephon Gilmore for $7 million guaranteed late in camp because, boy, he needs another guy who can cover man-to-man. What fascinates me is despite the injuries, despite the tragic death of one of their rookies at corner, they're not changing their plans football-wise. They're going into this saying, no, we need to blitz less. We need to cover more man-to-man. They want to do more of what Flores did in Miami where he had a top 10 defense once he got the personnel. So what do you guys think is going to be the ceiling for this defense now that you've got Blake Cashman, a familiar guy in the middle of it? You got all new edge rushers. You got new corners. You got Harrison Smith back for another year. So there's enough pieces here to at least make some noise.
It's the interesting thing where we are now as I think about this is my biggest question is in the front of it, not the back. And that over the course of Vikings history is not typically the case.
No. Yeah.
This is a organization with a long, rich history on the defensive line and a lot of questions, at least in recent history, at corner. Maybe for most of this century.
Just one more.
At corner. Just one more. That Brian Flores also subscribes to that philosophy. And I've come to think
Just 6 more. Jeez.
that there's something to that. The defensive coordinator in Dallas may have been onto something there. And he said just one more. I think, did they cut him already, Andrew Booth, or he ended up on
I don't know.
injury list? I thought I saw news.
He was having not great plays in the preseason. I saw that.
Yep. So all that is to say, the corner group, I think, is going to be more reliable. I think it's the sturdiest group they've had since the end of the Rhodes, Waynes, Newman kind of group, as Andrew knocks on wood.
Knock on wood.
I like the safeties. I think they have a lot of versatility there. I like the linebackers better as a whole. Yeah. My question is, boy, Pat Royce in the house, too. Man, we got everybody here.
All the stars coming out.
The defensive line, I think, is the big question. Can they stop the run? Can they hold the point at the edge, as you're trying to get to the quarterback, all those kinds of things. I have a lot of questions there, and I think the defense will be better. I think the way they used defensive linemen last year was enough that if you're not terribly deep there, you can get away with it, because there's a lot of times where they played 1 or 2 in a lot of their sub packages, so you'll see some of that again. But yeah, I think overall this can be a pretty good defense, especially if you're able to pair stronger man coverage with that pass rush.
It was already the better side of the ball for most of last year, right? Like in terms of production, in terms of like the analytics.
Shut out in Oakland.
That was
Vegas,
with
wherever they are.
That was with far diminished personnel compared to this year, I think. Like they just didn't have depth. They ran out of bodies for like the last 6 games of last year. Obviously, the quarterback story was a big part of why the offense wasn't getting it done for most of the second half of the year. But you give Brian Flores players, I think he can put together a top 10 defense potentially. I don't know if that's too optimistic, but I think
reasonable.
Top 10 is probably their ceiling. I don't think they're going to be
last year for a lot of.
They're not going to be like the one of the best 3 defenses, I don't think, but I think they can be top 10. So that's really what this season is about. If the defense is good and if they actually do run the ball close to 50% of the time, they're going to probably try to win games 20-16. It's going to be kind of Zimmer ball, isn't it? Is it not?
It's going to be kind of 2016.
Yeah.
And they're going to be turning to a rookie kicker who they took in the 6th round, Will Reichard out of Alabama. Boy, has he been amazing in these preseason games. This young kid has been great in training camp as well. I believe ESPN's Kevin Seifert took track of, it was like 31 of 35 kicks or something like that in the camps practices that he's put together. So just that alone, Ben, what could go wrong with a kicker in a Minnesota Vikings uniform?
A rookie kicker from the SEC kicking at Lambeau Field in September. What indeed could go wrong?
We've never seen
that. He went on to be a very good kicker.
He did.
Daniel Carlson went on to be a very good kicker.
Pulled the plug too soon. His brother is having trouble kicking at Lambeau Field in September and many other months.
Did they decide that battle yet between him and Joseph?
Joseph had, I think, a bad preseason game over the weekend. I think he pushed one right.
Which is
kind of what
his
he
habit.
does.
That's his habit. Yeah.
So it may be Anders Carlson again in Green Bay. We'll have to see how that goes. But Will Reichard has been. I mean, there was a practice. They have the light posts behind the goalposts are probably, what would you say, another 10 yards beyond it. He had a practice where he hit the light post on the fly, probably, a good halfway up the thing, twice in the span of the same field goal period. So, and he hits from 57 on Sunday, or Saturday. I didn't think that was I didn't think he hit that ball as cleanly as he has in some, but there was no question it was going to go through. So he has all the leg you would need for that spot, and having kicked for Nick Saban, having kicked in big games, you'd think he's ready for it. But, they've had a lot of SEC kickers who have kicked in big spots before, too, so we'll see how all that shakes out.
All right, we got about 20 minutes left here. Let's get to the diehards stuff. We got a lot of diehards who listen to this podcast, Ben. They want to know our 53-man rosters.
Oh, yeah.
Who's in, who's out. The team needs to make those decisions by 3 p.m. tomorrow on Tuesday. There's going to be some surprises, I think, because this is a very young roster.
Yeah.
This roster's in transition, much so as it has been over the last couple of years. So we got to get to what we think is going to happen. And everybody wants to talk about the quarterbacks. They started 4 of them last year. So it might not just be the Sam Darnold show. Little goes to plan in the NFL. So, Ben, what do you think is going to happen with the young kid we just saw out there in Philadelphia, Jaron Hall? He had a very strong ending to this preseason. He started a game last year for the Vikings. If they keep him again, what's to say he's not starting again at some point this year?
Well, and that, I think, is the big question, and was just talking about this on K-Fan with Paul Allen, that if they are going to keep him, they have to be able to get past that game, because that Sunday night against the Packers, when they still have a chance to go to the playoffs, New Year's Eve, he was not good. I mean, there's no way to dress that up. They pull him at halftime, just looked overmatched, looked not ready for the spot, and they felt good about all the preparation. So you have to have something that tells you he's progressed beyond that. We've seen a lot of good things happen in the preseason. How do you project that if he had to play in that spot again? I don't know how much you can take preseason football and say this is a one-for-one map onto what you see in the future. I will say, whether it's making throws into traffic, I thought he had a good clock on Saturday for when I need to bail out of the pocket. He gets a first down with his feet, extended a couple plays that way. I think I've seen progress. We've seen it throughout the preseason. We've seen some of it in camp practices. The danger with this whole thing is there's a temptation to put him on the practice squad because the NFL rule now allows you to pull your third quarterback from the practice squad, which means you don't have to use a roster spot. But to get in there, you have to put him through waivers. So if you're going to do that, you're putting the risk of another team, speaking of the Green Bay Packers, who have had backup quarterback issues, may want to put a claim on a quarterback that they think can play. So if you put him on the practice squad or try to get him there, you expose him to waivers for 24 hours. I have him on the roster because I think eventually they will say, you know what? He's done enough good things on film. Somebody will put in a claim for him. We've invested a year and a half into him. Let's keep him as our third, especially like you said, they needed those guys last year, and they would have loved to have somebody with more experience in their system. So I think he stays.
Yeah, Mike, what do you think about Jaren Hall? Is he worth that spot when it may come at the cost of a developmental corner or edge rusher or somewhere else on the roster?
That's the hard part, and it some of it depends, too, on how you think about him long-term. Do you think he's good enough to be your number 2 quarterback next year? Because if you do, then you've got a really cheap quarterback room next year with J.J. McCarthy and Jaren Hall.
And a backup who's been in your system for 2.5 years.
Yeah, so that's, it could be some future thinking that leads them to keep him this year because Mullins is already under contract, right? So you've got Mullins under contract. You don't necessarily need Jaren Hall to be anything more than, hey, let's keep developing for a year. So it does make a certain amount of sense. He's been in your system. You liked him enough to start him twice. It was some of it was desperation, but you liked him enough that he started 2 games last year. I mean, he was doing fine against Atlanta till he got hurt. So I think he probably stays for all those reasons that the one you outlined. Like if you expose him, there's a decent chance somebody else picks him up, and then you've kind of got nothing out of this investment.
Yeah, this is one where we don't disagree on. I had them leaning on keeping Jaren Hall. The reasons why they wouldn't is if there's going to be a glut of third-string quarterbacks available because all these teams are going, you know what? We're just going to put them all in the practice squad. And if then you're thinking Hall doesn't stack up as a top 5 or 10 third-string quarterback in the league, you yourself might be looking at somebody else to claim if you're not that sold.
Or is it kind of a gentleman's agreement of
don't touch my guy?
Yeah, don't touch mine. I won't touch yours.
I wouldn't go off a handshake in the NFL.
Yeah, I don't know. So.
You never know.
Either,
but not with 31 other GMs. But
you guys disagreed a lot, though, on
we did.
on your projections.
Yeah, let's get to the good
that was
stuff.
tasty. I read it this morning. That was spicy.
Yeah, what did you think was the biggest disagreement we had? I guess for me,
Asamoah, probably, right?
it was probably the draft picks. Everybody knows who follows this Vikings team knows that 2022 draft class was not great.
Right.
It didn't go very well.
No, not good.
I don't think there's any qualms.
Being polite here.
They're probably going to be moving on from Lewis Seen,
Yeah,
their
we both
first-round
had
pick,
that.
whether it's a trade or a cut. We both think that's going to happen. The next question is, Andrew Booth has already been shown the door, traded to Dallas. Ed Ingram is still going to be starting, but he was the only guy playing in these preseason games who was a starter, which is not a good sign for where he's at. Beyond that, it's Brian Asamoah, the third-round linebacker that just has not been able to get in Brian Flores' good graces.
Yep.
And then it's a Caleb Evans, who's just been buried on the depth chart behind Shaq Griffin, Stephon Gilmore, Fabian Moreau, all these corners that they've signed off the street to bring in. You have them cutting Asamoah.
Yes.
I have them cutting a Caleb Evans.
Yep.
We both think this 2022 draft class in some shape or form is going to be kind of shoved out the door.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I wrote about this in my newsletter, Access Vikings
Sign
newsletter.
up right here for those who are live right here.
Kids,
Sign up right
QR
here.
code right at Mike Rand's feet. The 2022 draft class, the interesting thing there is that they may end up getting more production from day 3 of that thing than they did from the top. If you think about Ty Chandler and Jalen Naylor, who I think is going to be the third wide receiver, may end up, if Jordan Addison's ankle is an issue going into the season, he may end up playing a lot more.
The vindication of the Rick Spielman method. I know it wasn't a Spielman draft, but all those late picks.
Yep.
Get all the late picks. That's all you need.
Yep. Especially when it looks like maybe you hit on an edge rusher in the first round. Imagine that. It is that 2022 draft class is getting to the point where they have to make decisions on a lot of these guys. They already did on Andrew Booth, obviously, moving on from him. I do think you'll see a little bit of a different approach with Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah than you've perhaps seen with Rick Spielman, in the sense that draft picks may not get extra leash just because they were high draft picks. He's talked about this before, that as a stock trader in his former career,
Yeah.
you made decisions. You miss sometimes. You get evaluated immediately. Sometimes you probably get ripped by your coworkers in a pretty competitive environment, and you have to move on.
Yep.
You can't sit there and linger and say, well, maybe this will come back around. You say, well, this is what we got from it. It didn't work. Cut our losses and move on. The sunk cost fallacy is not going to dictate how they deal with the roster, I don't think.
You're saying I shouldn't keep Trey Lance in my dynasty leagues?
Yes, that would be my advice. I would not do that after. What did he end up, like 5 interceptions?
Not great.
On Saturday?
Let's move on.
300 yards?
Not great.
Now, this is a brief rabbit trail. 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions is not the worst fantasy line ever. It's like the Jameis Winston theory of fantasy football, which has worked for some in the past. So,
I don't think that's us.
Not us.
Not us.
We'll
What's
keep
over there?
rolling.
Yeah.
No, I think I would not keep Trey Lance in your dynasty league beyond that. But yes, I think overall a lot of the decisions they're going to make are going to be not tied to the past. So you will, I think, see them move on from Lewis Seam. We both have that. We both have them getting rid of at least one of their defensive players from the top 4 rounds of that draft. They traded Andrew Booth. I just don't think the draft picks, especially when it's on the defensive side of the ball, Brian Flores was not here for that. Brian Flores does not have to have the same opinion on those players as they did when they took them. So, yeah, I think the changes are coming for the defensive class of 2022.
Yeah, Mike, what do you think about that draft class, specifically these defenders we're talking about? Do any of them have a reason to stay in your mind?
I mean, maybe Asamoah just because he's physically talented and he's good on special teams. So you could see maybe him sticking around for that reason. But you're right. They don't seem particularly wedded to kind of giving their mistakes more chances just because they were high draft picks, which is refreshing, right? Like, you'd rather them draft better in the first place, but if it's not working out, it's not working out. And to Ben's point, they did hit on some guys like, Ty Chandler and Jalen Naylor could be pretty good players from that class who could be, key contributors this year. So it's not like it's all lost. It's just what's interesting is they're not getting Addison, of course, this year, but with McCarthy out, like the benefit from their first 3 draft classes is going to be pretty limited right now, and you don't want to go too many draft classes where that's the case. So they got to start hitting on some of this. They start getting those guys onto the roster, because otherwise you got to keep signing guys like Stephon Gilmore. No disrespect to Stephon Gilmore, he's a very good player, but you don't want to have to dip in and spend $7 million in August every year just to shore up positions that should have been figured out years ago in the draft.
Yeah, and they can get away with a little more of that over the next couple of years because you're not paying a quarterback exorbitant amounts of money, but that is what got them in trouble previously. When they didn't hit on draft picks, they had to go make signings to kind of tie things together. So if that continues, that is a problem. I will say, too, their undrafted free agent success has been pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, they probably put a couple on the roster, I think, this year. Ivan Pace Jr. certainly has become a significant contributor in the middle of that defense, ahead of Brian Asamoah.
Right.
So they have helped themselves a little bit in that capacity with the undrafted group. But yes, you have to hit on your draft picks because some of it is undrafted free agents are nice, but how often are you going to get an undrafted free agent to turn into a high level contributor?
Yeah.
Like, the scouts would refer to him as a blue chip player in the NFL. I think you could argue Adam Thielen was on the fringe of that.
Oh, yeah.
But
John Randall.
That's
a long time
I guess
ago.
Adam Thielen was a second team All-Pro, so we can say that. John Randall's a Hall of Famer. So they hit every once in a while. You don't want to make a habit of trying to do that.
Yeah, that's not a business plan.
Nope.
No. The business plan has to be
It's a happy accident.
Hitting on your first round picks, which the Vikings have had ups and downs with over the years. And this is important especially because Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, Kevin O'Connell are entering contract years in 2025. Kwesi, the GM, specifically needs to have more reasons for them to want to extend that contract. And his best acquisition at this point has been trading for TJ Hawkinson, which, again, great move, goes in the portfolio that he talks about and wants to be judged by. But those drafts are how a GM makes their bread and butter. That's how you grow, you home grow, develop, pay, all those things. And the guys that they've been paying have been guys that have been drafted by the previous GM. Justin Jefferson, Christian Darrisaw. Hasn't quite been their guys yet.
Josh Metellus, who I would keep an eye on that. his recent restructure makes me think there could be another bump in pay coming for him in the not too distant future.
Yeah, he played even more last year than they thought,
Yep.
but when paying him right before the season
Yep.
started. Any other differences that we had on this roster? We both had them keeping the same 6 receivers.
Yep.
No surprises there. The same 4 running backs.
Offensive line, I think we maybe were different.
The backups, yeah, we kind of differed on some spots. Dalton Reisner's a guy who they've kind of kept around but shoved to the kind of backup reserve role. They're putting a lot of faith in Blake Brandel, a reserve from last year, stepping up into the starting left guard spot. Talked about Ed Ingram not having the greatest camp or preseason so far. He's still starting for them. Sam Darnold not being great under pressure, and you've got that same offensive line that gave up a ton of it to Kirk Cousins in the interior when we talk about the O-line. So a lot of questions with that offensive line. Defensively, we just kind of ran through all of that there. Let's talk about quick Harrison Smith. He's somebody that fans are used to seeing on the field 100% of the time.
Right.
What do you think his role is going to be this year when he's not necessarily penciled in as a starter?
Yeah, I think they are going to try to use him a little more sparingly. I don't think that's going to mean you don't see him.
Yeah.
I think you may see him less than 1,000 snaps, which has been not common throughout his career. I mean, he is a guy that has played a lot of football over the last 12 years for this team.
And you can see it by the end of the year. He's just a beaten man, literally.
Well, and that was the first thing we talked to him in the locker room in Detroit at the end of the season. And what's the first thing he says? My shoulder hurts, right?
Well, yeah, he went on a rant about how he didn't want to play anymore.
Right.
And he just kind of goes, I'm not trying to be dramatic. My shoulder hurts.
Yeah.
Like, just kind of give me a break here.
Yeah, I need a little time to
Yeah.
let the nagging pain in my shoulder not be in the back of my mind as I consider whether I want to do this again. But he has been a guy that has played a lot of football, has played through injuries at times. The high ankle sprain a few years ago that we thought was going to end his season. He comes back in a couple weeks from that. He does not he doesn't make a lot of business decisions, let's put it that way.
Right.
He puts his body on the line quite a bit, and he's been able to answer the bell and play a lot of snaps over the course of his time with the Vikings.
Yeah,
it would be strange to not see him out there quite as much. But if you were playing more man coverage, I think it follows that you're playing more 3 corners, not 3 safeties. I mean, a lot of times their base defense last year was a nickel package with 3 safeties. It was the 2 corners, whoever they happened to be at the time, and then it was Metellus, Bynum, Smith. I don't think that'll be the case. I think the nickel package this year is Griffin, Murphy, Gilmore, and then 2 of those safeties. So where does that take Harrison Smith off the field? I think it's going to be interesting to watch. I think he's probably still going to play in the box quite a bit. Do you trust Josh Metellus as a deep safety? Maybe you don't have to play him there. If it's a lot of single high, whether it's cover 1, cover 3, that's probably Cam Bynum. But yeah, it is going to be interesting to see kind of what the role is for Harrison Smith. His versatility still is a big advantage too, especially if you pair him with Metellus. I think they can do a lot of things there.
Yeah, and I imagine third downs, their blitz packages, that's where Harrison Smith is probably going to be most involved for Brian Flores in year 2. We know how good he was at disguising his intentions, being crafty against quarterbacks. I just can't imagine them throwing him out there for a lot of first and second down run downs to bang your body against whatever running back is out there.
Keep him fresh. We're all getting older, Andrew.
Yeah, none of us are getting younger, Mike.
None of us. Everybody here. Nobody's getting younger. But yeah, it's hard to imagine life without him. He's been here since 2012, right?
Yep.
So it's he and Gilmore, same draft class, both first-round picks. But yeah, getting him some rest along the way is not a bad idea. But yeah, I got a question for you guys. Does the punter survive the cutdowns?
It's an interesting one. I think so. Part of it because the holder stuff and trying to have that all be consistent. But I wouldn't be stunned. I think I wrote in my preview that he's probably got the shortest leash of those 3 between Reichard, him, and Andrew DePaula. So, yes, I think he does, but I still think they'd like to see him be a little more consistent and probably be a little better at being able to pin punts deep.
Yes, that was the thing O'Connell on that broadcast. He was like, he was mic'd up for you probably listened to the third quarter. He was like, they punted from around midfield, and he was like, I want to see this go inside the 10.
Hit the 12,
the field position guys, or the analytics guys, they want us to go for it all the time. There's still such a thing as field position. I want to see this inside the 10. He got it at the 12, which isn't bad, but he didn't seem thrilled with the punt. He doesn't seem thrilled with the punter.
Yeah, Ryan when he was a rookie, led the NFL in fewest touchbacks. He was very good at that.
Yeah.
Last year kind of went off the rails on him. He had about 6 or 7. I can't remember the exact number, but he had a lot of touchbacks where it ended up moving the defense back a little bit, gave the offense a shorter field. And so when you ask about that, they had him competing for that job up until about a week ago.
Yeah.
And I think the only reason they don't make the move is if they think if he's consistent enough, obviously, but also you mentioned it. They've got a rookie kicker
operation.
Yes.
They play
The
all
whole operation.
They
Kicking
play all
operation.
these close games. We've seen them cycle through punters before and holders before, and their kickers suffer for it. And I think these football coaches who can be a little meat-headed and just be like, "I'll just figure it out. It's just holding the football." I think they know enough now about it. Especially Kevin O'Connell, the new head coach, new in his 3rd year. He knows enough about that kind of mental game. It's almost like a golf player or a golfer. It's not all about just the physical techniques and reps. It's also about where you're at mentally. If throwing a new guy in there right away is not necessarily the best thing to do for a young how old is Riker? 21, 22?
Yeah. Yep.
You got a young kicker coming in there. You might as well try to keep things as consistent for him as possible.
Yeah, and you got to keep that fake punt London battery together with Ryan Wright and
There you go.
Jalen Naylor as they go back.
Back to London to play Aaron Rodgers.
Yes.
Dude,
They had to pull that play out again.
you've been at all these London games for
Yeah.
the Vikings recently anyway. Do they still just cheer for the kicks?
They were no, actually, because Eric Kendrick said that before the last one.
Yep.
They like to watch the kicks, and that the game ended on a double doink. I actually thought the crowd for the last one was more engaged, and maybe it was a lot of Viking. I mean, it's Vikings and Saints last time, so 2 fan bases that are pretty passionate about their teams. So that might have helped in that sense, and it's a matchup that has been a bit of a rivalry over the years. They've had some memorable encounters with one another, so. I thought overall it was better, like the energy was better at that one than it had been in 2017 or 2013. It didn't seem as much of a novelty, if that makes sense. It seemed like a little more engagement, similar to what you'd see in an NFL game here.
Yeah, and fans are going to have to get used to that. The Vikings are going back to London to face Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets Week 5, beginning of October.
They don't get to boo them at US Bank Stadium. Sorry, fans.
They do
It's
not.
too bad.
They do not. And I believe the NFL is playing a game in Brazil this year.
Packers are in Brazil against the Eagles next Friday night.
That's just going to keep happening. More global games, more travel, all that kind of stuff. So fans will have to get used to not seeing their team at home as often as they move these games abroad. Is there anything else we should get to before we bid everybody adieu here, our loyal listeners and everybody here at the State Fair?
I don't know. Does anybody out there have a question in the audience? You guys good? Anything you're dying to know about this year's Vikings? You can come up and ask it. Otherwise,
Any NFC North hot takes from the Peanut Gallery?
Yeah, how are the Bears going to do, Lavelle? You have to come up here and talk about it at some point. Because they got Caleb Williams showing off there for the Chicago Bears. Romo Dunze. It's a good time to be a Bears fan, Lavelle.
Bear down. First of all, I'm really nervous about Caleb Williams, although the skills are ridiculous. He throws on the run, which Justin Fields couldn't do, because Justin would roll out and just run.
Yep.
He throws people open. He puts his head on the swivel. He goes through progressions. He does a lot of really nice things. That against the body throw to Oduze a couple weeks ago was brilliant. But when I wrote about this, I think J.J. McCarthy was in a better situation to succeed because he didn't have to come in and be the man, and because his head coach is offensive-minded. I thought that was a good fit for him. That's not the case for Caleb. He's coming into a situation where Bears fans are nuts right now in Chicago. They think his team's going like 11-6,
Of course they do.
12-5, and and they think that Caleb Williams is going to walk right in and be the next Sid Luckman, and I can't go that far with him yet. Do I think he can be better than Justin Fields? Absolutely. But he doesn't need to throw 4,000 yards for me to prove it. If he gets to 3,000 and 20 touchdowns and 8 interceptions, I'd be happy.
Lavelle,
He
if
gets
he
to
throws,
4,000.
I
Go
know.
ahead.
Lavelle,
I
if he-
will copy your touchdown call.
I was going to say, if he throws for 4,000 yards, Lavelle, he's the Bears' career all-time leader.
I know. That's how low.
Never had it done.
That's how low. So he's coming in a situation with a crappy quarterback situation history.
Yep.
A hungry city, expecting greatness. It's a lot to ask for this guy.
So the next Sid Luckman, you guys haven't seen the last Sid Luckman. None of you were alive.
I know. Jay Cutler is like the best quarterback of
How
mine.
did Jay Cutler not throw for $4,000 with Alshon Jeffrey and Brandon Marshall
And
Matt Forte?
Martellus Bennett.
Yes.
I don't know. That's Mark Trestman. That was
Yeah.
Trestman who coached it. How do you not destroy everybody through the air with those people?
That one didn't make a lot of sense to me either.
I want to say the Bears, I looked at the schedule. I see 9 wins. I'm really baffled with the Vikings. I can see 6 wins in some cases. I
Yeah.
can see 9 or 10 in the others. Sam Darnold to me is a big factor in that. He's failed in 2 places, but people are arguing that, well, look who he had to work with. I was like, C.J. Stroud walked into Houston and lifted everybody's ability. How come Darnold didn't do that? But Flores' defense, adding Aaron Jones as a running back. I mean, there's a lot of things that make the Vikings look like they could be a winning team.
Yeah.
But this year in this division, it's really up in the air. The Bears do not play a conference opponent until week 11. I've never seen a schedule like that.
A division opponent, you mean?
Yeah, that's what I said, division, right?
Yeah.
NFC North, they don't play in the NFC North until
That is
week
wild.
11. So is that good or bad? Because that means Fields doesn't see Flores' defense until week 11 or 12 or what it is. I don't know. So,
But it means Williams has time to grow. I think that part is probably not bad, but
in closing, I just think that this division is going to be like an Anchorman street fight. So whoever doesn't get hit with the trident survives and wins.
that escalated quickly.
Yeah,
I like that.
They got out of hand fast.
On that note, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Access Vikings podcast.
Brett
Please
killed a guy.
subscribe, rate, review wherever you get your
Andrew Kill is
podcasts.
tight end.
Spotify, Apple. Please download Mike's Daily Delivery Sports
Yes.
podcast as well. Comes to your inbox daily for all Minnesota sports. And please check out all of our work at StarTribune.com.